Hey guys, it's Sting again, and it's another episode of
Heaven with the best shot.
Stop that shit! This is the fuck I'm talking about! 10 years of this shit! Every night, 5 a.m. Shut the fuck up!
And for today's grandiose episode, we pick a grandiose picture. One that is one of the few biopics I can actually stand. And I don't mean that as faint praise because it's an amazing movie. Milos Forman's 1984 Best Picture winner Amadeus, which, hold on a minute. What the fuck? The director's cut? The director's cut. You picked the director's cut of Amadeus to put on Netflix? You son of a...
And I wanna conquer the world. Give all the idiots a brand new religion. Put an end to poverty, uncleanliness, and toil. Promote equality and all of my decisions with a quick wink of the eye. And God, you must be joking.
I'm beginning to think it was a miracle that I ever got around to watching the theatrical version of Amadeus. The majority of available copies happen to be the director's cut, which extends it to about 3 hours with footage that sort of is a bit more overt than I would like the story to be. Since that's the copy that's on Netflix, we work with what we can, but fortunately what we have is still a pretty amazing movie. Of course, in spite of how great it is, even at 3 hours, I didn't exactly find a plethora of shots that stood out to me. Don't get me wrong, I think the late Miroslav Ondřiček did a fantastic job with the cinematography of Amadeus, but part of why I think it was so easily understandable for even me when I saw it in middle school was because Ondřiček shot the film in a mix between modern naturalism and the Barry Lyndon-esque painterly style of lighting. It is an old setting that feels entirely modern to us. There's nothing about Amadeus that ever had me sit down and say, whoa, I must have transported back in time. It entirely felt like a now film. And so, of course, if my choice in shot is not going to be driven by the cinematography itself, it's going to be driven by how it relates to the characters. You don't need to be much of a genius, you just need to see the title to know that Amadeus is about the Beatles. Tom Hulce's performance as Wolfgang Amadeus McCartney, and F. Murray Abraham's Oscar-winning performance as Antonio Starr. I wish I could talk about everything I love about the film, but this isn't a review. All I want to say is that it's when you watch it, Peter Shaffer's script focuses on Mozart from Salieri's point of view, and thus I feel like a lot of how Mozart is portrayed is from Salieri's distorted lens of jealousy, hatred, and all these terrible characteristics of Mozart are things that Salieri wants to believe. So he's kind of lying to the priest in a way. That's why every time I hear a complaint that Amadeus is like, oh, it's inaccurate to the life of Mozart, I usually kind of have to dismiss it by saying, well, it's Salieri talking. So when it came time to picking out a shot, I could focus on many different aspects of Abraham's fantastic performance. His facial expression as an old man trying to relate his tale to the priest.
Everybody liked me. I liked myself.
His devotion and then later rejection of God based on how betrayed he feels by Mozart's talent, especially since we know a lot of Mozart's habits and a lot of things that Mozart does or that happens to Mozart, Salieri feels is a direct communication between him and God, and the flaws of Salieri himself. And I think I found that last part a lot more fun, given how easily I could point out the inaccuracies in Amadeus, and how easy it was, once you look back on the events of the film, to see that even while Salieri is trying to craft himself as
Was a model of virtue.
he's kind of got his own problems and is a bit of a hypocrite. And from there was how I was able to pick my best shot early on in the picture, as a matter of fact. At the beginning of the film, Salieri is very much looking forward to witnessing Mozart for the very first time. Because he's heard so much about him, Salieri expects him to be a model person, somebody who is fine and upstanding. And that's part of his, I don't want to say twisted, that's a bit negative, but self-projected idea of a connection between music and divinity. He doesn't expect Mozart to be vulgar. He doesn't expect him to be childish. He doesn't expect him to have a laugh that sounds like nails scraping on a chalkboard. He expects him to be godly, well-mannered and well-manicured, as in this first scene where we find Salieri putting himself towards this childish, impatient game of looking for Mozart among the people and trying to pick him out. We then see Salieri himself get distracted by sweets, no more. By no more than sweets. All throughout the film we see like bits and pieces of the fact that Salieri probably had a bit of a sweet tooth. He couldn't stop, eating on really sugary stuff. During Salieri's own quest to find God, he gets sidelined by the smallest of vices of his, the fact that he just can't stop eating crap. That's something that just speaks to me, probably because I have a bit of a sweet tooth myself. Plus, I absolutely love Salieri's look as he, witnesses the banquet right there waiting for him before it's actually ready. A long shot that itself makes a point of noting its own excess by having a door close on Salieri once he sees the cakes, and then still have that shot continue and Salieri himself go into the kitchen to taste that sweets. It's really not a huge sin, but it's just that one tiny loose screw in his own mechanization of himself being that model of virtue. Plus, what really makes me happy is that this is the shot that leads him into the scenario where he does meet Mozart. And when he does meet Mozart, it happens to me while Mozart himself is being that kind of child that Salieri is not very fond of. I do so absolutely recommend Amadeus to you guys. I don't know how much longer it's going to be on Netflix, although that is the director's cut, so if you get a chance, I really do recommend the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is much more swifter. When it comes to the director's cut, I mean, nothing in it is there that doesn't really belong. However, I essentially have to go with what Emperor Joseph says.
It's quality work. And there are simply too many notes. That's all. Just cut a few and it'll be perfect.
Which few did you have in mind, Majesty?